thought it might be fun. And then when we did the class the other day with Cartersville, there was a couple of times you know when you're kind of peeling those things back
right.
when we go through the presentation and you're asking questions about what did that nonverbal command do to the fireground.
Right.
I think it's fun. I think it's good to talk about that, like this nonverbal change of command or size up. What does size up do to the entire fireground?
Right.
So
I'm down with
that was it. I mean, I just thought it might be fun to give it a shot.
Okay.
You're not down with it? Or?
No, 100%. I'm all in. I'm all in on plan A.
And then if it goes to shit, we'll adjust plan A until it fits.
Right. We're going to say this enough so that we can make T-shirts.
All in on plan A.
Already have
there
T-shirts.
is no plan B.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should have T-shirts.
I saw plan
already.
B try to unfold one time on the fareground.
How did it go?
Not well.
Exactly.
But they gave it every opportunity. And, of course, I was a driver, so I didn't have I was younger in the department, and we had just totally botched this damn scene. I mean, it was just shit was not going right. And they literally clear alt, delete this damn thing, move that truck from where it is, pick that line up from where it is. That truck needs to go over here. And we did it. And it was,
right.
I mean, it eventually went out, but it was not good.
Yeah, probably the closest I've ever seen is when we charged the bed one time.
Well, I've seen that a couple
Going
times.
downhill, and that pretty much takes that unit out of service. You're going to have to get another unit to come in and do it, So it was pretty much a plan B at that point.
I think the
This one's
thing about
gone.
plan A, it shows the importance of how getting started right is so important.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
if you can't at least get this thing heading down in some right direction, it is difficult, if not almost impossible, to turn one around that it just keeps on tumbling out of control.
Yeah, you have to find a way to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and I think that starts. I think it's important for us as incident commanders or captains or whatever to start. That starts with the size up. Right, where the size up.
That was a hell of a segue. I love it.
Yeah. And because that's what sets the tone for the incident.
Right.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Agree.
So if that starts wrong, which lots of times it starts wrong from the get-go, and even in the Charleston situation, whether you want to say that had contributed to it or not, dispatchers laughing when they're dispatching, which I've heard that. They're in their world doing their thing. And I've heard it.
Yeah, so that's a very small part of what we talk about in the class, but
the reality of it is it sets a tone where it immediately, whether you subconsciously or consciously realize it, it almost makes it seem like maybe this ain't as bad as I thought it was, because even the ones who originated the call, who have all the firsthand information, doesn't seem too bad to them. Right.
I'd equate that to Bill Smith used to on scene. There was a huge difference in my mind between being told, engine 2, I need you to do this, which he was talking to me, and when he'd call you over and put his arm around you and say, Bill, I need you to go up on the 3rd floor in that breezeway and cut it off. It can't get by you.
Yep.
The fact that he had said Bill as opposed to engine 2, that was huge. And that little verbal cue in the dispatch sends a message, or at least it does for me. I receive it that way.
So I think that kind of plays into the whole size up piece, and size up. It's easy for us to think, or for people to think, size up is when the first unit gets on the scene. Mm-hmm. That's not when it's taking place. Size up, in reality, it's taken maybe years before an actual event comes out. Whether you know the territory, whether you know the structures in your territory, do you know the water supply capabilities in your territory?
Who's coming in behind you? Who are the other crews?
Who's going to be your second, your third, your fourth? Who's going to be your truck company? I think that is part of the size up piece. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty in depth. Yeah.
Do you think it's 2? I think I'm not saying it's one of those things you totally concentrate on, but I think as firefighters, it's important to understand your response area so that it's built and supported just muscle memory. It just happens. You just know.
And we're relying more and more on technology at this point.
Right. And so
why doesn't the MDT tell me this information about the structure?
Right. Why does it tell me where the hydrant is and things like that? So, yeah, I mean, it would be great. And, I used to make jokes and I do presentations to the public about before we had the MDTs. I'm like, do you know how we get to neighborhoods? And they're like, GPS. I'm like, nope, we memorize it. We memorize all the streets and what side, what numbers are, and the brake numbers. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, oh yeah, that's how we do it. But that's pretty much gone now. I mean, there's very few people that that have that stay drivers, 10, 15, 20 years. Everybody's always looking to move up. Everybody's looking to advance. So you don't have those guys that are so in depth in what they do that they know the brake numbers. They know exactly where the hydrants are and stuff like that.
That brings a good point as far as that long-term size up piece or that early size up piece. Let's move into like the actual size up unit on the scene.
Oh, so that part you weren't agreeing with, so we're going to move on to something else.
You bring up a good point. I mean, you absolutely bring up I don't want to believe it necessarily because I think crews are still doing territory. I think they're still understanding braking numbers. I think they're understanding what the water capabilities are in those areas. It's not like there's wholesale changes on these stations where I just said, you know what, station 2 is now station 10 and 10 is now going to be 1 and 1. That's just not what we do. We don't do that.
And maybe I'm speaking more from my department and what we're asking some of our guys to do. Obviously, I don't work for every department, so I don't know, exactly what that looks like. But for us, I know we do ask our people, a lot of our people, we're constantly moving them around and saying, hey, you're on a overtime shift. We need you to go ride the seat of this or whatever. We have rovers, and those guys are constantly in the street in different stations. They're not going to know, the capabilities in that coming in unit, what the training levels of these individuals on the truck with them are. Like we kind of get really good at winging it, which is kind of sad, kind of scary, but.
Well, that's the whole winging it is when you get lucky, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm totally with you on that. I mean, we set ourselves up in a lot of ways. I think, in the fire service, a lot of times when we wing it, we're setting ourselves up for failure because there are a lot of things that we can do on the front end to prepare ourselves for success. And because we're looking at budget constraints or staffing constraints or whatever, we make compromises, and that compromise is going to come due at some point, whether it's building loss, human life loss, whatever it is, it will come due. We get lucky a lot of times. Right, with what we do, but I always feel like we're daring ourselves to the point where, it works right up until it doesn't, and then we're like, oh, we should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
So moving on to the more immediate size up.
It totally took a turn. I didn't see it going.
Yeah, it got a little dark there. Sorry, people.
I didn't see that coming. I thought we might actually just give some pointers on size up, and setting the scene off in the right direction. But thanks, Hatch.
Oh, no problem. I was here to help.
So let's reel it back some and do talk about the actual first unit on the scene size up.
Okay.
And what's important, and what do you hear, and what do you not like? So, like for you, you're right out there, and you're probably hearing more size ups than any of us here.
Right.
What about this size up? Engine so and so's on the scene. I got smoke showing. It's going to be a working incident. You good with that?
No. Smoke showing on what?
I don't know. He didn't tell you.
Be a working incident. What are you going to be doing?
Have no idea. Do you ever hear that, though?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's my point. We hear that. I hear that still.
Yeah.
On the scene.
Right.
Smoke showing. Working incident. If you even got the working incident part. Sometimes you might just get smoke showing. We're down with a...
We have to assume then that it's going to be...
The idea is, from the firefighter's perspective, maybe, is if I said there's smoke showing, of course it's a working incident.
Right.
But in our particular department and in the 911 system, the operators are so strictly...
key to the terminology.
Yeah,
well, they are
trigger words.
Their supervisors make them. They can't make it a working incident until they hear somebody say this is a working fire.
Yeah.
And there are reasons it sounds stupid, but there's reasons that's in place.
Right.
And they are waiting for somebody to say it, and that's why it's it's important.
So when people get on the scene and they give that size up, what is that doing for second unit, third unit, and battalion chief? It's giving them nothing.
Right. It gives them nothing, no situational awareness of what's about to happen or what's going on. Right.
Smoke showing because it's a grill, smoke showing because there's a bedroom rolling.
So it's important
smoke showing,
to give.
But maybe they don't know.
We're going to need a hydrant, what kind of smoke? Thick black churning smoke,
right.
Drifting little light colored smoke.
Well, even if they said that
smoke coming from the attic, smoke coming from the front door, smoke.
See, there's a lot of times too where I'll kind of somewhat ignore some of the smoke stuff because, like, I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys have seen it before. You look on the MDT, and it's like police on scene, heavy smoke. Right. And you get there, and it's like hardly any smoke at all. And you're like,
that one
that was heavy to you.
I understand that one.
Why is that funny? I mean, you've never had that happen.
Oh, no, absolutely. It does. I picture somebody going, Chief, when I got here, there was way more smoke.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It was more than heavy.
That's so I don't always. I mean,
it's the same thing. There was a size up years ago that I was listening to. The text came out that there was a working fire, and I turned the radio on, and the size up first unit pulling on scene is, it was a single family, split level, 85% involved. We're going in interior, or 85% involved, really? And now
that's such an odd.
Yeah. Now, if it's a fast attack for a rescue on a vent enter search on a bedroom or something like that, okay,
right.
But 85% involved, and you're committing to interior operations. I'm having trouble reconciling what you said versus what I see in my head.
What do you want to hear from a battalion chief's perspective?
That's a good question. Obviously, I want to know you're on the scene. You've got command confirming the address. Whether it's across the street or whatever it is. Sometimes you obviously don't know the actual street address. It's one of the things I always try to get if I'm safety or if I'm the chief to get, because communication is going to ask, because they're going to send utilities to it and they need the address. So I understand the need for it. I want them to give their initial, building description, what they see, what their plan is, what their little plan A is. I get it. We're going to adjust it as we go. And that they're going to do a 360. Okay. I want them to get a total picture of what's going on. I'm not talking about a fast lap, how fast you can run around the building. I'm talking about actually looking, pay attention. Is it on a basement? Is it on a crawl space? Number of stories? Do you have exposure issues? Is there something on the Charlie side that they need to know about? Is it boarded up? Does it have power? Maybe the power is a little bit much. We can probably have some.
But there's still some good stuff that comes out of that 360. So.
Yeah, typically I get the 360, whatever doing 360, and then you never hear an update from what the 360 provided.
I hear the 360. I love the 360 thing, and I think they're doing a good job with that. I think we're actually doing a pretty good job on it because say 360 is complete. There were no additional hazards noted on the 360.
That's great.
But that one's still very, again, subjective, and you're basing it on what they did or did not see.
Well,
but it's still at least something that saying, hey, this one's on a basement.
Right.
The basement's clear. There's no smoke in the basement. It's on a crawl space.
And 360s are a skill. Marty Green, I don't remember if this was in class that I used to teach with him or if he actually talked about it on the episode that we had him on. But he used to talk about, he said the first time he did a 360, all he remembers was there was fire and smoke,
right.
And he did his 360. And the second time he did a 360, he saw the fire and the smoke and the entrance cable coming into the house. And the third time he did the 360, these aren't the same fire. These are...
I was going to say, same fire.
No.
That's a lot of 360.
Yeah.
He's pretty fast.
No, but his point was that as he was getting better at them, he was seeing the smoke and the fire and the entrance cable and the car in the garage. And, and then he noticed there's a for sale sign in the front yard. And, he was getting much, much better at seeing as he was doing the 360, because I don't know how many times I've done a 360 back when I was still doing them, but I'd do a 360, not because I choose not to do them anymore, but because my role right now doesn't require me to do 360s, but
we're clear
because I've written them off. They're a waste of time. But I would do a 360 and then at some point in the incident, do another 360 and go, holy crap, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
There was one house, I can remember perfectly. There were 2 separate crawl spaces on this house. and I completely missed it because when I saw the first door to the crawl space on the seaside, I checked that box off. I know where the door to the crawl space is. Well, this was one of those old houses that they had built over in Chamblee. It used to be military housing when that was an active military base. And the house had been added onto a number of times. And you couldn't really tell from the outside because they'd done a really good job with it, but it had 2 separate crawl spaces, you know. And I saw the first one and was like, yep, I know where the crawl space door is. Well, there was a crawl space door on the D side too.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you definitely have some development that can take place with that 360.
The more you do it, the better you're at it.
Or the more you spend time thinking about when you're going to do it,
right.
Hopefully that will help too. That's what I hope comes out of episodes like this when we talk about size up. It's easy just to say, you know, you get caught up in the moment and my unit's on the scene. I got smoke showing. I'll be down with blue line, tack line, whatever you guys, whatever department calls it.
Right.
And then you're handling business. So in your mind, you're thinking, I'm handling business. I'm just doing what needs to be done. But it doesn't support the overall operations. It doesn't set the next crew up for success.
Right.
Because you haven't given them any kind of idea what you want from the next crew, whether you handled water supply or they need to handle water supply, or do they need to be writ, or do they need, you didn't do any of that.
Right.
You may have some incident action plan in your mind, but you have not done a good job as far as moving that along.
I know the company that's going to be behind me
know
really
what
well.
do.
We've worked together for years. I know what Captain So-and-so does. He'll know what I need when he gets here, except for that Captain So-and-so and his crew got into a wreck on the way here, and they're no longer second due.
Right.
So I think it's important when size up happens, when crews do size up, that incident commander gets on the scene, establishes command clearly, because that's part of the goal here is to start to control, establish
that's
command.
Where I was hoping you were going to go there. What's the difference between command and control?
We're not ready to go there.
We're not going to go there?
Not yet. But they get on scene. They give a good building description, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to hear what they have showing upon arrival. So this building is a 2-story single-family dwelling. I don't have to get into whole construction, this square footage. I mean, it just doesn't matter if you tell me it's 2,000 square feet. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter.
So if Pabell were here, he'd be fighting you on
this.
Yeah,
he would be, because it would mess up his command.
Well, I mean, his point, he's got a good point. His point is that when I say it's a large structure, what does that mean?
Right. Well, this particular page didn't say any of that. It just said single family dwelling, 2-story. And then I think it's important to say, if you can say where that smoke is showing from is important instead of just smoke showing.
Right.
Is it coming from the front door? Is it coming from the second floor? Is it coming from the eaves? Is it coming from the garage?
Well,
I think you need to be very descriptive
or all
on
of the
where
above.
It's coming from.
But how about that? Smoke coming from D, all of the above.
It is pretty much coming from everywhere. And that's okay.
So having been that, company officer on the first in unit before, it's an overwhelming situation and your mind is racing.
I agree.
Right. Trying to get this information out, trying to tell your guys what you want them to do, trying to answer the public as they're screaming at you about whatever the situation is, and possibly making assignments. It is never lost on me how overwhelming giving that size up can be. And typically it is done before the wheels in the truck stop moving and you have gotten just a little glimpse of what your situation is. That's why the whole 360 and updating, a little bit more time to delve into the situation.
That's what I would exactly say. You bring up a good point, but you also, as the incident commander, you're right. You can totally get overwhelmed, but it's, in my opinion, your responsibility to, at some point, woe that up. Don't let the scene control you. You stop for just a minute and make sure that what you are saying is supporting this overall, where this is going to go. I get it. We've all been hit from 15 different directions at once, but that's a tough one for me to say, well, I just think you need to stop and take a breath if you have to. Give a good size up. Get it started off on a good foot. Do the 360. I think the 360 should absolutely not be a fast lap. because I do see
right.
that happening, and that creates what
Are there
you're
no-
saying even worse.
Are there no circumstances that a fast lapse is acceptable to you?
No, I think sometimes there might be.
Okay, because the previous statement sounded like there was absolutely no. Maybe I'm being more.
Well, you're being Bill, but that's why we love you.
All right.
That's okay.
So what are the circumstances when a fast lapse? Okay.
I think in some situations where immediate rescue was like I could see somebody half in the front door, half out the front door, half in the front window. I could see where you
Agreed.
maybe you take a little, what I used to call a look-see.
Right.
You know, you've directed your tailboard or whatever to start that rescue, and you just take a little quick peek around the back just to make sure that we don't have fire blowing out the basement we didn't know about.
Right.
But again, every one of these, you could tear them all apart.
Sure.
In the best case scenario, though, would be to do that 360 and for the purpose of finding out what's happening with the rest of the structure. Does this structure going to support what I'm getting ready to do or what I want to do?
So let me ask you, for a size up, what is the number one highest priority piece of information you want?
We're talking about it's on fire.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I want to know if we think it's actually burning.
Is that
or
an
not.
assumed?
Okay,
This
that's
is
the number
a
one.
burning structure.
I could probably peel this back just a little bit more, but yeah, I think whether or not this thing is actually on fire is probably what I'd be curious about. Whether something
Not smoke, just fire.
No. Smoke would, to me, would
Signs
show
signs
something's
of
happening.
fire.
Something's happening. I want to know if this building is just absolutely.
All right, what's yours?
Well, I mean, the reason I'm saying that is because you could have smoke come from the Johnny side together. It's a grill or it's a couch. That's not necessarily fire. But if you see fire coming out of the house,
You want to
it's
to
on
hear
fire.
Yeah.
flame showing, or
right.
you have flames.
That's what I'm
coming
saying. Is
from.
there a difference between the smoke and the fire? I'm saying,
Yeah.
that's the number one.
I think if you had smoke and fire, then I think you ought to say I got smoke. But also, I think it goes back to my point of where this smoke. If you pull up on the scene, you got smoke showing. It could be coming from a grill in the back. But if you come up on the scene and you say, go through your command, size up. I got 1-story single family dwelling. I do have smoke showing. It appears to be coming from the rear of the structure. I'll be out doing a 360. Blah 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 blah. And then that 360 catches that. Oh, it's just
See, that's
grill.
where I would have. I didn't know if you were going from the. We know it's on fire. What's the most important? Which would be location of the fire for me.
Okay. And I was really just kind of saying, if they were only going to give you one piece of information, what would you want it to be?
I'd say location of the fire. If you tell me it's
Knowing
in the
that it's
basement,
burning?
huh?
Knowing that it's on fire.
Yes.
But he's only given us the opportunity to pick one piece of information.
Yes. I want to know where. If it's in the attic only, I know we're very, very
So if they get on the scene and
set
say,
up to go in and knock this out. And if anybody's in the building and it's only in the attic, we've got a good chance of getting them. If it's in the basement, that's a whole different ball game.
yeah, whoever ends it on the scene, we have fire in the basement, we have fire in the attic. I mean,
If it's
they're
in the
telling you it's a
kitchen,
working fire, and
Is
they're
that
telling
what you want? Is location? What's your?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good piece. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure because we get into a whole litany of information. You can do the whole Cole as well thing of your size, and it's just too much information to provide rapidly. And some people break it down to 5 or whatever, and it comes down to what you practice. When you're learning how to ride the seat, you're usually parroting whoever's riding the seat in front of you. And listening to their size up, and you're going to do something very similar or somebody you respect over the radio. And then it's, do you spend time looking at YouTube videos and things like that, trying to do size ups of, giving that same type of information, because it looks like anything else, when you get overwhelmed, you're going to revert back to what you're comfortable with and what you practiced. You're not going to be like, that's not what you're looking for.
Let me ask you this: you're in a unique situation because you work for 2 different departments and they're busy, and the other department has a lot of different. Do you typically see good size ups, or do you typically? What's your assessment? Do you hear good sice ups mostly, or do you hear bad size ups?
It's a mixture. And because the way that the department is run, and I don't mean that negatively, but just having to have people ride up. If you're working on a holiday, a lot of the senior people are going to be off. You're going to have people riding up with less years of experience. They're quickly going to get overwhelmed. This is not the position they're comfortable with. And they're going to give you information, but it's going to be sketchy sometimes. Working fire, we're investigating. Well, what do you need to investigate on a working fire? Or the one I always love is we had food on the stove. I think we can handle it.
Yeah, I think it's always been a tough one for me.
I need you to be a little more assured that you can handle it.
I've had a couple of conversations and actions where we've said, I think I can get this. And I say, well, I think you need to go ahead and pull the line then.
Yeah.
Because I think we can get it with a water can. I think we can get it with this crew. I think I can get it with that. I've always been I need to know what
exactly
you can do,
right?
Not what you think.
So when you're saying, as a battalion chief, what do I want to hear? I want to hear confidence that exactly the full ramifications of what your situation is. This is what it is. This is what we have, and we can handle it with what we got. Or I need more resources, or I need, get, to pass command to the next company that comes in. So knowing the location of the fire is huge. Knowing, whether or not they've got a water supply is huge. And then it could even be what lines they're pulling off. If they're doing cross lays, they've either caught their own water and they need somebody to bring it to them. But if they're going to be doing off the back, typically they're going to go get it.
That's a good. Just knowing what you're pulling tells me something about the fire.
Exactly. But how deep do you want them to get into it? Because it really needs to be as much like doing the Lunar versus the 3 Ws in a May Day. If you really think somebody burning in a life-threatening situation is going to make name and location, and they're going to say it as fast as they can, get it out of their mouth, because it's just a dynamic situation. And so when we're having these people ride up and seat riders and things like that, they're not as practiced at it. So to make it as basic, what is the basic information that I need, that's going to set that, in the right direction is kind of what I'm asking.
So I think it would be important for crews then to obviously practice this. If you're at the station, practice what it sounds like. Have conversations around the table on size up, and then do it with your battalion chief too.
But I'll be the first one to admit, when I do it in front of people, even as a battalion chief and done tons and tons of them, I get super nervous doing it in front of people because other people have seen the video and they know what's coming up or what I may miss. But when we go to a fire, I'm seeing it the first time they are too. If I miss something, I just miss it.
There's something you can do with that. I know exactly what you're talking about, and some things you can do to kind of alleviate some of the anxieties when it comes to training, because I get it, man. Guys and gals, nobody wants to look like an idiot. And so that
especially in a firehouse.
Here's
Holy
the
smokes.
thing, but you don't want that to deter training.
Right.
So what you can do, and I have seen it, I've been a part of it, take your radios, go to that talk around channel and split up. Send somebody in the back room. Send somebody in the front room. You be second engine. You be third engine. You be the battalion chief. I'll be first unit. You don't have to be sitting there looking, because I even do it when we're sitting here looking at each other talking. I'm looking at Hatch's face making stupid faces at me, thinking, did I just say something bad? And it throws you off. So
it does.
Separate in the fire
that's
station.
A good point.
Just separate. Maybe you don't get to see, only one person's watching the video. Not everybody's watching the video, right? You see what I'm saying? So you're watching the video, you're sitting there by yourself watching it, you give the size up, your crew members are in different locations and they are responding or reacting to it. Then once it's all said and done, then come together, let them see the video, and then have a conversation about it. That way you're not just feel some kind of way.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I had a lieutenant when I first got on, way before YouTube. And he had it all on like 3x5 cards, and he'd give you, your engine 1, your engine 2, your engine 3, and he'd give you the card as like, you're on the scene, this is what it is, give your size up. And that's kind of written down. I mean, you kind of just read off what it said. But it was just kind of interesting because it allowed me as a junior firefighter in the back, I was like, oh, these are the kind of things I need to say. This is kind of put it in a nice little framework. And I always laugh because there would be one guy who'd be like, he'd say, I'm on the scene, there's nothing showing, this is food on the stove, you can return all units to service, just totally blow his game out of the water, and I'd laugh. I'd be like, that was pretty good, I like that.
So I think the bottom line is we need to practice. You need to practice a lot. Don't let the first time be the first time. Now, most places are going to AOIC school, or your riding up school, or whatever anybody calls it. So obviously they're going to be practicing it there, but that's a different setting. And I think it's important to practice at the station.
Yeah, continual practice on it.
Yeah. Let the senior guys weigh in on it too.
I thought there was benefit to doing it the same every time.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that if your patter is to say engine 2's on scene out investigating 2-story single family dwelling, those are things that you don't have to think about. What's the next thing that I need to say? Your brain's working that I know what I'm, it makes it more automatic so that you can key into the things that are specific about that incident. You're no longer worried about, what do I call this? A single family dwelling, or do I call it a residence or a split level or you get into that thing.
And I think people do this because I hear stories about this all the time, especially during promotional time. You're running these size ups in your head coming to work.
Yeah.
You just kind of daydreaming. And I'm like, I wonder what I would do with that.
Well, hopefully
then I go
through
there. Yeah. So that's a good time. Just to be constantly thinking. So you're right. Get those.
So what was your size up on the interstate?
You were first
on scene, right?
No, I wasn't first.
Oh, no, that's right. You had the engines there.
Yeah, there was engine, and then another engine and truck showed up, and then we were like third or fourth or something like that.
So you didn't give a size up?
What was the size up? Do you remember?
Trash
I don't remember being like that.
trash and debris burning underneath the expressway.
Okay.
I think is what it was. And
That's what it was.
Yeah, it was.
When you got there, was it a lot of trash and debris burning?
It was no longer the trash burning. It was the conduit stuff burning really, really badly.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of smoke, a lot of fire.
That was all that plastics and
high density plastic. Yeah,
it's not just an interstate. It's an interstate that's 70 or 80, 60 feet up.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it's not like the bridge, over the creek.
No,
interstate.
No. It was
this
a lot.
Is an elevated interstate that was 6 or 7 lanes across on both sides.
Yeah. And my thing too, even in that one, it was so fast about me wanting to get the information out, and it was like, I need you to shut down the interstate. I need you to get these units out there, because that was my biggest concern. Was just, you're on an interstate. There is no make a U-turn, go the other direction. You either keep going forward or you just stop where you are.
Right.
And there were people still driving through it, and I was like, this is bad.
Right.
So I was like, we need to shut that down.
So how important? Who were you communicating with once you arrived on scene?
Communications first.
You were talking to radio?
Mm-hmm.
So was your size up important to conveying to radio how
bad the situation
was?
Yeah. I was really trying to convey, this is a really super bad situation.
Right.
Start me a second alarm immediately. Right. We need to shut this down. And then, I just kind of went crazy from there.
Because granted, that's not your normal. That's not
No.
a normal size up.
No.
That's a very extraordinary situation. But your practice doing size up on all those regular fires, I would imagine, made that somewhat better, right?
Yeah.
Or your ability to.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. You kind of look at it now. I look back at it and like, oh man, I really kind of missed this, or I should have done it this way, or whatever. And I listen to the tape, and I swear it sounds like I sped it up, because I am talking so fast, trying to get this out as quickly as possible, as much as I'm trying to say. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a big situation. And it was all on the fly. We did this on like a general dispatch channel, what we call our TAC 2, where everything from trash fires to, motor vehicle accidents, everything happens. It was not a dedicated TAC channel. So everybody was listening to this. And I was like, I need TAC channels. It was a whole lot of information I was trying to get out very, very quickly, to make this into a real situation. And it was quite a challenge, and I was doing it all in my head,
right?
Because these were not only like 2 units or 3 units were dispatched; everybody else was just picking it up. And then so I was like trying to keep them all in my head of like who's on the scene, who's going where, and I was like, man, this is getting rough,
right?
So it was very difficult at the time. But going back to just a regular size up, I don't want to overstate or not give enough credence to how important it is to give that tidbits of information in the very beginning, quickly but accurately. Practice it, do the things, your due diligence to make sure that information is relayed out, because really the importance is everybody else is listening, and everybody else is going to set their tempo based off of what you say.
Right.
And so you'd have those ones that, you couldn't get their heart rate over 80 if you set them on fire. and you're like, oh, I don't know. But the other ones, you can hear it in their voice.
You know if it's burning.
Yeah, they don't even have to tell you. You're like, oh yeah, we got one now.
So when we taught a class based around the Charleston Sofa Superstore fire, and we talked about the size up on that fire from the first arriving unit on scene, Battalion 4, was a bunch of trash and debris burning alongside the building.
Right. And what did that do?
Right. What do we talked about what that does to the responding units, those engines that are, coming down Savannah Highway toward the store. When you hear that, what's going on in your mind, do you start to relax? Do you start thinking about getting back to the station, and you're loosening the straps on your SCBA, and somebody might even reach over and turn off the siren and the lights and figure we'll just go, normal flow and
start looking for where you can turn around.
Yeah. All of those things, but that size up set that tone.
Yeah.
I think, it would have done that to me. I'd have been thinking, so-and-so's got this.
Right.
We'll be back home. What would you say to the people that say that, and you hear it every once in a while, you can't talk a fire out? So all of this size up bullshit.
Yeah, just get on the scene and start working.
Yeah, why are you wasting time on the radio? You should be pulling lines and putting water on the fire, because that's the only thing that's going to put this fire out. All your radio traffic's for shit.
I can see their point. It does take a lot of action, but when things start going sideways, the radio communication is going to be what is the basis of your situational awareness of what the total situation is, where they are, where the fire is, what's happening, what went wrong.
Right. No, I agree. I'm just trying to, be those people, but
Bill.
Well, no, but I mean,
No,
I think it lends to the idea of control. There is such a thing as talking too much on the radio. Believe me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. However, sounding good on the radio and being in control of the scene drives a lot of other people's.
That is setting the tone.
Yeah.
Yes.
It drives the future actions. This is nothing to panic over. I guarantee you, if I had pulled up on the interstate like you did, my radio traffic would have been horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Did I ever let y'all listen to it? Yeah,
no, I haven't heard it.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Oh, I'd like to listen to it. I haven't heard it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Well, I think the bottom line is to practice. Don't think it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because it does matter. Don't get into the thought that, well, it doesn't really matter if I get it right or if I do it right.
I'll be interior soon, and command will have handed off to somebody else and won't be my responsibility.
I think that's the wrong way to go down. I think you need to try to do it right, because the scene will build off of your actions, period.
No,
Good or bad.
Those first steps.
Yeah. I
mean, you're laying track.
Yeah, and the better that command presence is, in the initial part of it, the way that people, as Bill was saying, you feel like you're in control, because you've also heard ones that are pinging so bad you can almost hear it, that it's above them and already moving past them.
All you're thinking is, God, I hope somebody gets on scene and takes this from them.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's their size up. We got a lot of fire, and, we're doing rescue, and
oh my God,
give me help.
Sound like a tea kettle.
Yeah. So now everybody, same kind of thing, just like you were talking about before, is, when they kind of downplay it, now this is so the other way, and you're like,
right now you got everybody hyped up.
Yeah, please, somebody, with a little calmer mind can just
look
calm
at the
this
pressure
down a
you just put on the next person.
Yeah, now they got to reel it back in.
Try to figure out how to reel it back in.
Not just put out the fire, but.
So is that what you guys do for the second in would come and take over?
It would depend. If it was a fast attack and they had went into that fast attack mode, rescue mode, yes, the second unit would take command.
Right. And I think it's really, for everybody it's a little bit different. We have dictated roles in our policies, what they're going to do, and I'm sure everybody is a little bit differently. But again, the size up kind of dictates what those roles are going to do. If you're telling them whether or not you got water supply, then that next in unit knows, all right, I'm maybe RIT or whatever it is. It's helping lay that groundwork, building that foundation of how you're going to build the whole rest of the scene on basically what you tell them in the beginning. And to be that overwhelmed, unpracticed, working fire, all hands or whatever, and that's it. That's all they say. And I get it, people, it's hard to talk on the radio when you got your hands on the line and trying to do different things. But if you're not calling for help and you're not painting that picture, nobody else is either.
Right.
And then everybody's just playing in the dark, and then
just forced to react when they get there.
Right. So command is too. As they're may make bad decisions, but it's probably going to be based off of bad information that was being given to them.
Agreed.
All right.
Well, it's a fun conversation, I guess.
Well.
All right. Well, we want to thank the Golden Dogs again for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates. Their music is available on CD and digital, anywhere you listen to digital, stream stuff. It's also available from True North Records. And we're on Facebook, our Twitter, but, nobody ever hits us on Twitter.
I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. Of course, our podcast is on the internet, combustibletopodcast.com. We appreciate you listening.
Yep.
All right, that's it.
Thanks.